or over XP'd, then that Inquisitor by himself is not going to be a challenge.
Okay, because I was looking at this
without the dice just screwing the party.
Because he was a, his combat. In other words, it said like 694 for his what the Og dude said. So, and then the guys he was going against, you were talking about a experience of 455, a 370, and then a third that was up there too in the 300s.
Oh wow, yeah, they should, even if they were like all diplomats and doctors at that XP level, if it's just the basic Inquisitor build type thing,
yeah,
they should be able to handle him.
Okay.
Because the basic Inquisitor build is like the NPCs in the back of the book, from what I've seen in my experience, the way they are built is largely designed for a beginning campaign. Like once your players get to knight level power or higher, then you've got to modify those NPCs or throw more of them at the group in order to balance it.
Go ahead.
Knight level power is 150 XP and 9,000 credits. So once they've passed that, and obviously like if they're at 100 XP and 20,000 credits, that's probably about the same. And if they're at less credits, but once they pass 200 XP, then it balances out to be about the same. Because, I mean, credits a lot of times will give you stat bonuses, whether it's extra damage or accuracy or vigilance or whatever the case may be, different stuff. I mean...
Okay. Well, I got to admit, skill versus skill, I did not know. That was one I was not playing at all.
Okay.
So basically, what should have happened is they would have gone against the skill, which the funny part, the first hit was just excellent. He just had a really excellent hit. And then when the Inquisitor came in, even with all his skills, because it was skill against skill, he rolled a despair. Or a despair was rolled against him. And the despair was called, okay, he tries to hit, and he accidentally throws his lightsaber away. And then one of the characters decided, okay, I'm going to do a maneuver to go jump and grab his lightsaber off the ground and attack him with it. And that's where I was kind of like, there should be sort of defense or mechanism against that. And I'm looking at it going, I just don't see it.
There's a couple of things, and obviously it depends on the build of the particular Inquisitor. But one of the things I've done, because disarm is such a common choice that people make, and realistically, it's if you are a combat character who specializes in a particular weapon. I mean, not saying like the commando who picks up anything and goes, but if you're a combat character who specializes in a particular weapon, the most devastating thing that can happen in this system is you get disarmed and your opponent pick up your weapon.
Okay.
Like, because at that point, everything that you're built to do, you can no longer do.
Yeah.
So the things that I've started doing with my Inquisitors in order to balance that out is there's a couple of different ways you can handle it. One, if my Inquisitor is like a double-bladed user or using the polearm lightsaber or something like that, like he's got the specialty lightsaber.
Okay.
Then one of the options I've done is they will all carry a backup lightsaber that is just a typical standard lightsaber. So they've got a backup weapon. The other option you can do that is pretty interesting is I'm trying to remember what the name of it. In Og Dudes, under the attachments for your lightsabers or for your gear in general, not just lightsabers, there's one called...
I get the idea. It's an adjustment to the lightsaber itself.
Yeah, it's something like gravity modulator or something like that. It allows you to recover your lightsaber out to short range as a free action, because it's got a attachment to it that's like will pull it to you.
So before the other guy could go for it, because my first thought was like, okay, when the guy went for it, he should be able to use a force power to try to counteract that. And I'm looking at going, wait, he's already rolled his turn. He can't do that.
Yeah, well, it's called magnetic weapon tether, It's a 1 hard point, 250 credit item that wielder may recover engaged weapon as an incidental, and it gives them the innate talent quick draw as an optional modification. I mean, it's not going to stop them from like going and picking the weapon up if the players have next initiative. But basically, the way I've ruled it is because you've got a technological device. If the player just goes and like picks it up in his offhand type thing and is not actively doesn't realize that this guy has this attachment or doesn't start using it in combat himself, then I've said, well, he's going to activate this thing and it's going to magnetically yank it out of your hand unless you have like secured it, basically, because that's what it's designed to do. The other thing is obviously if your force user has the move power, then you can do the same thing with the force rather than technological thing. But yeah, I mean, the other thing that I found is that if you're running a game with 3 or more players, it almost does not matter how much more. I mean, unless your big bad guy is just obscenely more powerful than the players. If you do a 1 versus 3 just by the odds and the number of dice rolls that are getting, the players will eventually win. They may lose 1 or 2 members of their group in the process, but unless your bad guy is just overpowered compared to the group, just the raw numbers will deal with them. And the way you can deal with that is if you throw a couple of rivals or a couple of minion groups into the mix, they just are extra dice and they're soaking attacks from the players because the players have to deal with them or else they will whittle the players down. I mean, people overlook the minion rules where beyond the first member of a minion group with the skills that they're supposed to be good at, then then that's working like a skill. So like if you have a squad of 4 stormtroopers using ranged heavy, they have 3 agility and ranged heavy is a skill for them. If you got 4 of them, they're shooting with 3 yellow dice, which will kill people because triumphs will happen eventually.
Yeah. It's funny because this group, they ran across 8 antiquated drives and they got the drop on them. They had a triumph. And they got the drop on them. I mean, that's basically a rate. Oh, you see them and they don't see you. So therefore, your triumph is you can attack this round without even where they're ready. Funny part is they took out 4 of them on that first run, but the antiquated Dreads almost took them out, even though they were much more powerful than the antiquated droids. But they just started getting really piss poor rolls.
Right.
And then they get across the Inquisitor and they wipe him. It was not even close.
The thing that I found with minion groups as a rule of thumb, don't make the minion group any larger than your number of players as a default. Okay. So like if you've got a starting group of players of 4 players, like in a starting game, then no squad of stormtroopers should be more than 4. So if you want to throw 8 stormtroopers at them, you throw 2 squads of 4. Okay. The caveat to that is once you start getting experienced players, about every 150 XP, they can count as an additional player, if that makes sense. So like if you have 4 knight level players, 4 people with 150 XP each, then you can probably throw a squad of 8 at them, and that would be a tough encounter as a group by itself. I mean, like just straight up. Now that doesn't mean throw 2 squads of 8 at a group of players like that. That would probably slaughter them. But I mean, it's really tricky. This system is really one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is because like if you're playing old 3.5 D&D, you had the CR system, and while it wasn't perfect, it gave you a pretty good ballpark as to the difficulty of an encounter versus the player party level.
Yeah.
And then if you were playing stuff like Shadowrun and World of Darkness, you didn't actually really care. I mean, if they picked a fight with the prince, they're supposed to lose because they're not meant to be the heroes of the story in those systems necessarily. But this system, they're meant to be the heroes, but it's very difficult to find that right balance where, okay, this is a challenge for the party, but it won't instant crush them.
Well, for lack of a term, I kind of ran this as a test case. It was just a one-shot. It was just, okay, and I figured, okay, this guy would probably take him out. And they took him out so easily. But then again, as I said, a couple things like, okay, I see your point on that one.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting there looking at it going, okay, he lost his saber, but he should be able to at least try to grasp for it at the same time the other guy's going for it. I'm looking, I can't see anything that lets him do that. Except for, as you said, the modifying lightsaber that could do that in the first place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, either modifying the lightsaber to where you can yank it back, having the force power move, or just having a backup lightsaber.
So here's a point though. It's like, okay, he has the force power move, so he could do it, but
Right.
he's already expended his turn. But you're saying when the other character comes up, he can use that force move against him or force move to recover.
Yeah. I mean, and you see that at several points throughout the various movies or described in various books where, I mean, if it's your lightsaber, then the other guy has to work hard in order to keep it from coming to your hand, basically, if you're trained in move. The other thing, like to give you an idea, player XP versus NPC XP, if you're just doing a 1 versus 4 type scenario, I did on May the 4th. I did the game where the players were 4 characters with 500 XP each, and the villain of the story was an NPC with 2016 XP. I made it funny because it's 2016, and obviously the 1 extra doesn't do anything for him. But so they literally, like, the NPC had the same amount of XP as all the players combined, and he had adversary 4. And they beat him without any of them actually dying.
Okay.
And actually, that was with 1 player dropping from the game early on. So it was actually a 3 on. So he actually had 515 more XP spent than the 3 players combined, and they beat him. So, I mean, it also depends on how you're spending the XP. I mean, like if you're just worried about the combat stats because it's going to be a combat encounter, then you don't have to define its social stats necessarily. But I mean, it changes things because the other thing you can do is use the environment. I mean, one thing I've noticed with a lot of players, a lot of people's games on the group is they forget to throw setbacks and boosts at their players like crazy. I've been playing around with that a little bit more lately because so many talent trees have ways for players to offset certain numbers of setbacks.
Yes.
But if you're not throwing them at the players, then those talents don't have any value. And the trees that they are in don't have value if they're not coming up on a regular basis. So, and on the flip side, like you can use the environment. Like, I mean, the Battle of Mustafar or the Duel of the Fates is a good example where if you make the environment be such that they have to take rounds to do athletics checks here and there to jump from bridge to bridge or to keep from falling in the lava pit and that kind of thing, then it can actually make it where the environment is part of the encounter as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you could make it where, like one of the encounters I've been toying around with along those lines, because trying to emulate the Mustafar type encounter is make it where if the encounter is such where everyone wants to be in melee, but you make it where every round that you do not spend your action making an athletics or coordination check, difficulty 3, to find a better advantageous spot. Every round you don't do that, you gain a cumulative setback die to any attacks made against your opponent because they're finding the higher ground and that kind of thing. So, like, if you ignore the environment for too long, you're going to end up with like 7 setback dice, and you're going to have to like find a better spot. And that's one of the types of encounters I'm trying to build in my head and try to figure out a way to do, to where the players get to decide at what point is it too many setback dice. I mean, at what point do I feel like, okay, yeah, I've got to take it around here and back off and reset type thing. So, and obviously, like if you got your diplomat in the group, he may have to be doing it every other round because he can't handle the setbacks dice because he doesn't have the combat skills. Whereas your Jedi Knight or your Commando with the high athletics in the first place and the ability to offset setbacks and stuff may wait longer. I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of ideas and stuff as far as that goes right now. But yeah, the main thing is also, I'm trying to remember if it's just certain adversaries in the books. I was trying to look for it. I know the Rancor has this, and I think some of the other adversaries have it, where if the players outnumber the adversary by more than double, then they get a second full action at the end of the round. The adversary does. I'm trying to remember if that was just something the Rancor had or what. No, it's not something the Rancor has. So it's something I read somewhere. It's one of those things that I know I've read it somewhere and I can't find it again at the top of my head. I don't know. I'll find it at some point.
Okay, no big deal.
Like,
Yeah, it's.
it may have just been an encounter in some
Yeah, I
book or
was
something.
running that one a little off because, okay, so they shouldn't have nearly the defense that they had, and he shouldn't have had nearly the defense. It would have worked a little differently.
Right.
Oh, that's the other point I had. Okay, Natural Blade Master. I know you get to re-roll on that one.
Right. Once per session.
So here's the thing: that's only when you're attacking, not when
Right.
you're defending.
Yep. Because the only time you're rolling is when you're attacking.
Okay. Actually, that's what I should have done. Is when he rolled that despair on his attack, I should have done a Natural Blade Master re-roll on it, and then that I should have done. So okay,
That can happen. Yeah. I mean, that's the main thing is, and the other thing with that is the despairs for the NPCs. I mean, because you were doing the opposed checks, you were rolling a lot more red dice than he would normally roll.
Yeah.
Because the hardest I've ever managed to make it for an NPC to hit me is 2 purple, 2 red, and 3 setback. I think that's the hardest I've ever made it for an NPC to hit me, and that's with my 1000 XP Jedi Knight that I made.
Okay.
Most NPCs are not going to make it. I mean, because other than like if you really stack the bodyguard, I mean not bodyguard, sidestep or there's sidestep for ranged combat, and then there's something else for melee. Like if you have each level of it allows you to take a strain to upgrade all attacks that you for that round or whatever.
Yeah.
Of that type. So I mean, like if you really stacked like the sidestep and were fighting against stormtroopers and wanted to take like 4 strain, then you could make it like 4 red, but that's not maintainable because of the strain requirement, really.
Okay.
The strongest default is the sense power tree on the left side. You can get it to where you upgrade their attacks twice for the first 2 attacks against you in a round, which is why with the sense, if your group has got Jedi in it and they have the sense trees, then you want to go with a larger number of rivals and minion groups because the first attack is going to get upgraded, maybe the second, depending on how many levels of that sense power they have. But they're not going to be able to do it continuously. So.
Okay, that's coming some so. Okay. That's gonna. Now I have to look at a few other things now.
Gotcha.
So it's like I'm just wondering. Now that I'm here, I got to look at it. Let's just take a look. Nemesis PC. Come on, open. Okay. So the adversary one. I don't see the adversary one. That's
Adversary's a talent. It's not under.
It's not a general thing.
Right.
Okay.
It's actually a talent for them, and only Nemesis get it. Rivals and minions do not.
Okay, Nemesis get it. Because I take a look at because I noticed the thing with the log dude. If you create a player character, if you open the GM tools, it automatically puts them as a Nemesis.
Right, because Nemesis are supposed to be like all player characters in theory are someone else in the galaxy's Nemesis.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory.
So technically, though, okay, so I got a guy with a really great lightsaber skill. However, if he doesn't have the adversary, then he's just a standard 2 on defense with a lightsaber.
Yeah, two purple dice for someone else to walk up and try to whack him with a lightsaber or melee weapon. And then, of course, range depends on what kind and how far away they are. But yeah, it's just the 2 purple unless he's got a force power, talent, or armor that upgrades that in any way.
One of my players pulled this one the other night, and I thought it was kind of interesting. I've never seen it before. What he did, I can't remember the check, but he basically, and I didn't realize this, but he said, basically, I'm pulling a force die away, and I'm activating, oh God, I don't even remember what it was he was activating. But it was one of those, okay, I'm pulling a force die, and therefore I get an upgrade on all these things. And the way he said it is like, okay, I'm pulling away this force die, so he had 2. So therefore, if he does any force checks, he only gets to use 1 because he pulled it away for this ability. That's the correct way to use it.
Yeah, that's what's called, the term for it is dedicating a force die.
Yeah.
The talent trees that's the most common in is the enhanced talent or the enhanced power tree and the left side of the sense power tree. Although it does show up periodically in a few other talent trees to be able to dedicate for different uses.
So in other words, like an athletics check. So if you have a force rating 2, then you'd pull your 2 force die away and you automatically get the enhanced.
No, enhance in that talent tree you can dedicate a force die to, like if you got the right talent, the powers, you can dedicate a force die to give yourself +1 brawn or +1 agility, depending on which power you're dedicating to and whatnot, and that you have to obviously spend the XP to get.
But you pull the dice away and then you automatically get it.
You get that bonus, whatever it is. So
okay.
But like in the enhanced tree on the way there, you can actually get it where you can roll your force die for bonuses on athletics or piloting or resilience or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So that's one of those talent trees that I've always I don't know about this. I mean, like, why would I want to dedicate a force die to agility when I may need it for like piloting or resilience, and that's agility and brawn?
I always looked at it as you rolled it and then you could, but you're saying no, you can pull that away and it's automatic.
No, well, not for everything. No, it tells you in the force power that you can dedicate a force die for this effect, whatever that effect is. So, like, let's look at the enhanced tree if you've got your book.
Yeah, I got it here.
Enhanced tree is page 288.
Okay, look at when making an athletics check, force user may roll. Okay, there's the word roll.
Yeah.
Enhanced power check as part of the roll, and spend the points. Okay, to gain either advantage or success. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
The controls that are at the end of the trees on the left and middle column, they say commit a force die.
Okay, so the basics. Okay, you roll it, and
right.
Then the ones that say the words commit. Okay, you're taking it out of the pool. Commit. Yep. Okay, I see that for the brawn force control. Increases brawn category. Okay, I see it now. Okay, and then now that makes some more sense.
The left column lets you do the same for agility instead. But yeah, and then like the sense talent tree on 304, its second one on the left allows you to commit 1 force die, and once per round when a target attacks you, you upgrade the difficulty by 1. But then later in the tree, it further affects that to where it can upgrade it twice, or you can use it twice.
So, all right, so that's the key words. When you see commit force die, that means take it out of your pool.
Yep.
Okay.
And the book is not clear as to when you can or cannot commit a force die. Basically, the ruling that I've come up with, and there's a couple of exceptions to this, but generally speaking, I say that commitment or decommitment has to be the first thing you do in your round.
Okay.
So that if you're committing for an effect, then you don't have that force die for force action that round.
Yeah.
If you're decommitting because you're going to do a force action, it's decommitted so that you have your force die for the round. The only exceptions that I can think of for that are in battle meditation, because it specifically says that once you make this check, you can commit force dice to make it an ongoing effect. That would be like you roll your force dice, and then if you trigger it, then you can commit some of them to make it an ongoing. And Seek has the same thing in it. So like there's 2 instances where I don't use that ruling because it specifically indicates it in the power in question. But because I've had people try to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to decommit all my force dice, take my action with the most force dice possible, and then I'm going to commit to something at the end of the round, basically just trying to min-max. And I'm like, no.
Okay.
So,
in other words,
and
when you have an athletics check and you see force die next to it, you're rolling those. Yeah, you're rolling those force die to see if you get extra successes or advantages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, is the force helping you with your athletics check or coordination check or piloting check or whatever the case it may be with the enhanced tree?
Okay. All right. That's. This is good. This is good. I definitely have some ideas here. So, we're actually. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, I definitely have some better knowledge of how to do this. Now I can see why I made it too easy for them or too hard for my guys. Still excellent rolls, but yeah, I can.
Right. I mean, it still ultimately comes down to the dice rolls. But the fewer red dice in your guys' pool versus the fewer yellow dice in their pool means that they got a better shot of at least being a challenge.
Okay, and therefore
those despairs throw your math off big time.
So opposed checks, because I've seen that a few times in the books where it talks about opposed checks, but not for lightsaber combat.
Not for lightsaber combat. Opposed checks, generally speaking, perception versus stealth is a common one, or perception versus skullduggery, or vigilance versus stealth. Discipline versus coercion, opposed negotiations, chases you could have, opposed survival, opposed athletics, opposed piloting, depending on what the chase is. I mean, there's a decent number of opposed checks out there for various uses. And the other thing is, if it's an opposed check, the way I handle it, and it's not clear in the book, but whoever is the one that's on the offensive in the check is rolling their dice pool with the difficulty of the opposing player's dice pool. So it's not like you're rolling the 2 yellow and 1 green for your NPC and they're rolling their 3 yellow. No, if they're the ones, like if they're making the stealth check, then they roll their stealth at a difficulty of the other person's perception, if that makes sense. That way only one person at the table is having to roll dice to try to figure out the math and all that good stuff.
Okay. Hey, by the way, since I got you here, I just won't let you go, will I?
I don't care. It's not like I got anything better to do tonight.
Got a point. You know what? Hold on. I'm gonna put a stop on the broadcast real quick.